coming to you live with some more insights from our Sapiens and War and Peace reading series. As always, thank you for watching. Let's see if I can remember. Yes, thank you for watching. I hope you're enjoying. Let's see. Please do remember to follow if you'd like to see more Stormer Show content. Following this reading series that I'll have today, I'll give Jump King another try. And hey, maybe Halo Reach later. Yeah, I might try it Jump King without the controller just to see if it's easier, but yeah. Okay, without further ado. I think it's in dashboard. Yeah, it's not telling me the reminder, but I'm supposed to remind everybody to follow the stream for more. Okay. All right. Let's open the book. I think today we'll start with Sapiens and round off with a couple chapters of War and Peace. As always, thank you for watching. Thank you for joining me. Bit on my legs by mosquitoes. Still hasn't fully healed. Yeah, my arm, I don't know if you guys can see, but they got me. Okay. The Age of Shopping. Alright. The Age of Shopping. Pretty much. The modern capitalist economy must constantly increase production if it is to survive, like a shark that must swim or suffocate. People just gotta keep buying stuff. The economy's in the tank. Joe Biden's gonna tell everybody what I already know, which is we're not doing so great. Yet it's not enough to just produce. Somebody must also buy the products, or industrialists and investors alike would go bust. To prevent this catastrophe and to make sure that people will always buy whatever new stuff industry produces, a new kind of ethic appeared: consumerism. Most people throughout history lived under conditions of scarcity. Frugality was thus their watchword. The austere ethics of the Puritans and Spartans are but two famous examples. A good person avoided luxuries, never threw food away, and patched up torn trousers instead of buying a new pair. Only kings and nobles allowed themselves to renounce such values publicly and conspicuously flaunt their riches. It's like the age-old saying, waste not, want not. But, yeah, the wealthy have more freedom, more financial freedom They don't need to be as lean. Consumerism sees the consumption of ever more products and services as a positive thing. It encourages people to treat themselves, spoil themselves, and even kill themselves slowly by overconsumption. Pretty much. Buy, buy, buy. Reminds me of a, what is it? Backstreet Boys song? Buy, 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 buy. But this is a very different kind of buying. Frugality is a disease to be cured. You don't have to look far to see the consumer ethic in action. Just read the back of a cereal box. Here's a quote from a box of one of my favorite breakfast cereals, produced by an Israeli firm, Telma. Sometimes you need a treat. Sometimes you need a little extra energy. I should be reading this in my sales voice, my advertiser voice. Hold on a sec. Sometimes you need a treat. Sometimes you need a little extra energy. There are times to watch your weight and times where you've got to do something. Right now, Telma offers a variety of tasty cereals just for you. Treats without remorse. Same package sports an ad. Oh, sorry. The same package sports an ad for another brand of cereal called Health Treats. Health Treats offers lots of grains, fruits, and nuts for an experience that combines taste, pleasure, and health. For an enjoyable treat in the middle of the day, suitable for a healthy lifestyle. A real treat with wonderful taste of more. Emphasis in the original. Yeah, pretty much. It's all made to sound and look good, so you want to buy it. It's like a big shiny billboard or something like that. Throughout most of history, people were likely to have been repelled rather than attracted by such a text. They would have branded it as selfish, decadent, and morally corrupt. It's too indulgent, they might say. Consumerism has worked very hard with the help of popular psychology. Just do it. To convince people that indulgence is good for you, whereas frugality is self-oppression. I would say it requires a sense of balance. It's like less is more sometimes. Yeah, but spending within your means is important. Making the most of what you have. I wouldn't necessarily say that frugality is, as described here, self-oppression. I think that's overly critical of living a life where you fulfill your basic needs. It has succeeded. We are all good consumers. We buy countless products that we don't really need, and until yesterday we didn't know existed. Manufacturers deliberately design short-term goods, invent new and unnecessary models of perfectly satisfactory products that we must purchase in order to stay in. Shopping has become a favorite pastime, and consumer goods have become essential mediators in relationships between family members, spouses, and friends. Pretty much. It's like you go to the restaurant to spend time with your family. You go to the shopping mall to spend time with your friends. Religious holidays such as Christmas have become shopping festivals. In the United States, even Memorial Day, which is originally a solemn day for remembering fallen soldiers, is now an occasion for special sales. Most people mark this day by going shopping, perhaps to prove that defenders of freedom did not die in vain. It's like, exactly. People are out there dying in the muck, so you and I can enjoy the right to buy whatever we want whenever we want it. They have perished so that way you can buy your coffee machine on Amazon. The flowering of the consumerist ethic is manifested most clearly in the food market. Traditional agricultural societies lived in the awful shade of starvation. In the affluent world of today, one of the leading health problems is obesity, which strikes the poor, who stuff themselves with hamburgers and pizzas, even more severely than the rich, who eat organic salads and fruit smoothies. Each year, the U.S. population spends more money on diets than the amount needed to feed all the hungry people in the rest of the world. It's like, dang. Obesity is a double victory for consumerism. Instead of eating little, which will lead to economic contraction, people eat too much and then buy diet products, contributing to economic growth twice over. Yeah, I mean, obesity, it's, I think, sign of one of the bigger umbrella crises. It hasn't really had as much focus or exposure in light of the pandemic. I think COVID is practically still on the show of the public attention, but yeah. Obesity, it's never been a problem for the likes of me. I only ever eat when I'm hungry. I exercise and I try to eat healthy all the time. And I just try to stay active. And yeah, that's pretty much the secret. It's like, yeah, I'm pretty dang slim. How can we square the consumerist ethic with the capitalist ethic of the business person? According to which profits should not be wasted and should instead be reinvested in production. Pretty interesting parallel that Yuval draws here. It's like businesses focus on lean processes. It's like saving money, cutting costs and the overhead, and sometimes even like laying people off and stuff like that for the sake of the bottom line. And consumerism is characterized by extravagance. It's like buying as much as you can to fill all the needs that you have. Yeah, it's like business is about efficiency. Consumerism is about being fancy, showing off. In some sense. I mean, some people are buying to just take care of things that they want and need. And yeah, some people are buying things they don't need. But hey, it's simple. As in previous eras, there is today a division of labor between the elite and the masses. Yeah, true. Yeah, I'd say that's a big true. In medieval Europe, aristocrats spent their money carelessly on extravagant luxuries, whereas peasants lived frugally, minding every penny. Today, the tables have turned. The rich take great care of managing their assets and investments, while the less well-heeled go into debt, buying cars and televisions they don't really need. It's like vicious cycles, in a way. It's like, yeah, I'm seeing a lot of streamers react to these live PD videos where it's like cops. And cops pull over those poor people who have to engage in stuff like selling drugs to make ends meet. But they're not. They're just a sign of the problem. They're not the real problem. The real problem is much bigger than them. It's like you gotta look at whoever's pulling the strings. But anyways, the rich, they take great care managing their assets and investments, while everyone else is going to debt. The capitalist and consumerist ethics are two sides of the same coin, a merger of two commandments. The supreme commandment of the rich is invest. The supreme commandment of the rest of us is buy. The capitalist consumerist ethic is revolutionary in another respect. Most previous ethical systems presented people with a pretty tough deal. They were promised paradise, but only if they cultivated compassion and tolerance, overcame craving and anger, and restrained their selfish interests. This was too tough for most. The history of ethics is a sad tale of woeful ideals that nobody can live up to. Most Christians did not imitate Christ. Most Buddhists failed to follow Buddha, and most Confucians would have caused Confucius a temper tantrum. In contrast, most people today successfully live up to the capitalist consumerist ideal. The new ethic promises paradise on condition that the rich remain greedy and spend their time making more money, and that the masses give free rein to their cravings and passions, and buy more and more. This is the first religion in history whose followers actually do what they're asked to do. However, though, do we know that we'll really get paradise in return? We've seen it on television. And now Yuval's going to, I predict, talk about evangelism. Yeah, I mean, Sapiens, it's starting to take a look at our economic systems. Yeah, there's definitely flaws in there, but yeah, we just gotta keep thinking, doing what we can to improve systems so they're more socially focused. They're focused on the public good. In the next chapter, we'll take a look at the permanent revolution. We've already talked a little bit about the agricultural revolution, which made it easier for people to have access to food. The industrial revolution, which improved business processes. It improved transportation too. Like the steam engine, to a later point in time, cars. It's like the Industrial Revolution improved the way that people get around. But, yeah, it also improved production, so. It's, yeah, all in the name of improvement. Yeah, climate change is somewhat of a sign of the effects some of that growth. It's like, what are the underlying effects, underlying consequences of some of those measures? Okay, let's take a look at War and Peace. We're on chapter 15. My dear Boris, said Princess Anna Mikhailovna to her son, as Countess Rostova's carriage, in which they were seated, drove over the straw-covered street and turned into the wide courtyard of Count Cyril Vladimirovich Bezukov's house. My dear Boris, said the mother, drawing her hand from beneath her old mantle and laying it timidly and tenderly on her son's arm. Be affectionate and attentive to him in court. Count Cyril Vladimirovich is your godfather, after all. Your future depends on him. Remember that, my dear, and be nice to him, as you so well know how to be. If only I knew that anything besides humiliation would come of it, answered her son coldly. But I promised, and will do it for your sake. He's like, okay, I'll do it to keep my status, but I ain't gonna like it. Although the hall porter saw someone's carriage standing at the entrance, after scrutinizing the mother and son, who, without asking to be announced, had passed straight through the glass porch between the rows of statues and niches. And looking significantly at the lady's old cloak, he asked whether they wanted the Count or the princesses, and hearing that they wished to see the Count, said His Excellency was worse today, and that His Excellency was not receiving anyone. He's like, I don't want to go out into the eye of the public. We may as well go back, said the son in French. My dear, exclaimed his mother imploringly, again laying her hand on his arm as if that touch might soothe or rouse him. Boris said no more, but looked inquiringly at his mother without taking off his cloak. My friend, said Anna Mikhailovna in gentle tones, addressing the hall porter. I know Count Cyril Vladimirovich is very ill. That's why I've come. I'm a relation. I shall not disturb him, my friend. I only see Prince Vasily Sergeyevich. Oh, my Russian. He is staying here, or is he not? Please announce me. The hall porter sullenly pulled a bell that rang upstairs and turned away. Princess Strubetskaya, to see Prince Vasily Sergeyevich, he called to a footman dressed in knee breeches, shoes, and a swallowtail coat, who ran downstairs and looked over from the halfway landing. The mother smoothed the folds of her dyed silk dress before a large Venetian mirror on the wall. In her trodden-down shoes, briskly ascended the carpeted stairs. My dear, she said to her son, once more stimulating him by a touch, you promised me. The son, lowering his eyes, followed her quietly. They entered the large hall, from which one of the doors lead to the apartments assigned to Prince Vasily. Just as the mother and son, having reached the middle of the hall, were about to ask their way of an elderly footman who had sprung up as they entered, the bronze handle of one of the doors turned, and Prince Vasily came out, wearing a velvet coat with a single star on his breast, as was his custom when at home, taking leave of a good-looking, dark-haired man. This was the celebrated Petersburg doctor, Lorraine. Then it is certain, said the prince. Prince, how many Mr. are? To err is human, sir, but to forgive is divine. I'm paraphrasing, I'm improvising here, it doesn't actually say that. It does say Prince hominum est errare, to err is human. But, he replied, swallowing his R's and pronouncing the Latin words with a French accent. I can only imagine. I think the French, they talk like this. Pepe le Pew. Pepe le Pew. I think XQC is French. And I think what my ex-landlord is too, based on how you pick out those faint clues. Yeah, it's a very specific accent, the French accent. Very well, very well. Seeing Anna Mikhailovna and her son, Prince Vasily dismissed the doctor with a bow and approached them silently with a look of inquiry. The son noticed that an expression of profound sorrow suddenly clouded his mother's face, and he smiled slightly. Ah, Prince, in what sad circumstances we meet again. And how is our dear invalid? Said she, as though unaware of the cold, offensive look fixed on her. Prince Vasily stared at Boris questioningly and perplexed. Boris bowed politely. Prince Vasily, without acknowledging the bow, turned to Anna Mikhailovna, answering her query by a movement of the head and lips indicating very little hope for the patient. Is it possible? Exclaimed Anna Mikhailovna. Oh, how awful. It's terrible to think. This is my son, she added, indicating Boris. He wanted to thank you himself. Dang, she's being brutal. Boris bowed again politely. Believe me, Prince, a mother's heart will never forget what you've done for us. I'm glad I was able to do you a service, my dear Anna Mikhailovna, said Prince Vasily, arranging his lace frill and in tone and manner. Here in Moscow to Anna Mikhailovna, whom he had placed under an obligation, assuming an air of much greater importance than he had done in Petersburg at Anna Scherer's reception. It's like he's kind of like Pierre in a way. It's a little bit different than everybody else. All these people that they're focused on are like counts and countesses, like Russian nobility in the time of Napoleon, in the time of Thomas Jefferson. That's when all this was happening. Try to serve well and show yourself worthy, added he, addressing Boris with severity. It's like, prove yourself. I am glad. Are you here on leave? He went on his usual tone of indifference. I'm awaiting orders to join my new regiment, Your Excellency, replied Boris, betraying neither annoyance at the prince's brusque manner nor a desire to enter into conversation, but speaking so quietly and respectfully that the prince gave him a searching glance. He's like, I'll be going into the army soon, if you must know. Are you living with your mother? I'm living at Countess Rostova's, replied Boris, again adding, Your Excellency. That is with Ilya Rostov, who married Natalie Shinshina, said Anna Mikhailovna. I know, answered Prince Vasily in his monotonous voice. I never could understand how Natalie made up her mind to marry that unliked bear. A perfectly absurd and stupid fellow, and a gambler too, I'm told. Yeah. Annie is a girl's name, although it might be different in Russia. Like maybe Natalie is a guy's name over there. I don't know. Maybe, I guess it was the case in this time. But a very kind man, Prince, said Anna Mikhailovna with a pathetic smile, as though she too thought that Count Rostov deserved the censure, but asked him not to be too hard on the poor old man. What do the doctors say? Asked the princess after a pause, her worn face again expressing deep sorrow. They give little hope, replied the prince. And I should so like to thank Uncle once for all of his kindness to me, Boris. And I should so like to thank Uncle once for all his kindness to me and Boris. He is his godson, she added, her tone suggesting that this fact ought to give Prince Vasily much satisfaction. It's like, yeah, we're being nice. Everyone's nice in the family. It's like, hey, we're family, don't you know? Prince Vasily became thoughtful and frowned. Anna Mikhailovna saw that he was afraid of finding in her a rival for Count Bezukov's fortune, and hastened to reassure him. She's like, don't worry, I won't try to write you out of the will. If it were not for my sincere affection and devotion to Uncle, said she, uttering the word with peculiar assurance and unconcern. I know his character. Noble, upright. But you see, he has no one with him except the young princesses. They are still young. She bent her head and continued in a whisper. Has he performed his final duty, Prince? How priceless are those last moments? It can make things no worse. And it's absolutely necessary to prepare him if he is so ill. We women, Prince, and she smiled tenderly, always know how to say these things. I absolutely must see him, however painful it may be for me. I am used to suffering. Evidently the prince understood her, and also understood, as he had done at Anna Pavlovna's, that it would be difficult to get rid of Anna Mikhailovna. Would not such a meeting be too trying? Would not such a meeting be too trying for him, dear Anna Mikhailovna? Said he. Let us wait until evening. The doctors are expecting a crisis. But one cannot delay, Prince, at such a moment. Consider that the welfare of his soul is at stake. It's awful. The duties of a Christian. To take care of the less fortunate. To dedicate yourself to the 10 Commandments. Let's see, can I remember them? I think number 1 is, thou shalt have no other gods before me. Yeah, it gets freaking hazy up here. I might actually have to look them up. I know thou shalt not kill is one of them. Okay, hold on, you guys. Alright, the 10 Commandments. I am the Lord thy God. Thou shalt not have strange gods before me. I think it's also known as the false idol commandment. Thou shalt not take the name of thy Lord in vain is the second one. I try to think of modern examples. Remember to keep holy the Lord's day. I believe it's Sunday. But in Judaism, the Sabbath, I believe, fell on Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. Honor thy father and thy mother is the fourth one. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Yeah, and these ones were all brought down by Abraham, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, no, sorry. Is it Moses? Yeah, I think it's Moses. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods. The Quran does not list the Ten Commandments explicitly, but then substance appears in there's. Excuse me. It doesn't explicitly mention them in the Quran, but their substance appears in various places. Let's see who. Yeah, it wasn't Abraham. I think it was Moses that brought him down. Yeah. It's awful, the duties of a Christian. That's what Anna Pavlovna is saying. The door of one of the inner rooms opened, and one of the princesses, the Count's niece, entered with a cold, stern face. The length of her body was strikingly out of proportion to her short legs. Prince Vasily turned to her. Well, how is he? Still the same, but what can you expect? This noise, said the princess, looking at Anna Mikhailovna as at a stranger. Ah, my dear. I hardly knew you, said Anna Mikhailovna with a happy smile, ambling lightly up to the Count's niece. I have come, and am at your service to help you nurse my uncle. I imagine what you've gone through, said she sympathetically, as she turned up her eyes. The princess gave no reply and did not even smile, but left the room as Anna Mikhailovna took off her gloves, and occupying the position she had conquered, settled down in an armchair, inviting Prince Vasily to take a seat beside her. Boris, she said to her son with a smile, I shall go in to see the Count, my uncle. But you, my dear, had better go to Pierre meanwhile. And don't forget to give him the Rostov's invitation. They ask him to dinner. I suppose he won't go? She continued, turning to the prince. To the contrary, replied the prince, who had plainly become depressed. I shall be only too glad if you relieve me of that young man. Here he is, and the Count has not once asked for him. He shrugged his shoulders. The footman conducted Boris down the flight of stairs and up another to Pierre's rooms. Let's see. I think Prince Vasily is referring to Pierre. Chapter 16 is the next chapter. Let's see how long it is. I'd say it's a medium in length. Chapter 16. And of course, Pierre is the first word of the 16th chapter. Pierre. I guess I can read the first sentence. And I'll just continue it next time. I'll jump into junking and I'll see if I can At least get those shoes today. Okay. Pierre, after all, had not managed to choose a career Pierre, after all, had not managed to choose a career for himself in Petersburg, and had been expelled from there for riotous conduct and sent to Moscow. Pierre. I think Pierre is one of my favorite characters so far. I like Pierre, and yeah, Prince Vasily is pretty cool. Yeah, I guess some of the other characters don't really stand out as much. I may need to reference like Spark Notes or something to provide you all with some context. Basically, this is all happening in Russia during the period when Napoleon is engaging in the Napoleonic Wars. Like, Russia's on the verge of engaging in war with Napoleon. And yeah, that's the historical context. But I don't know, I think it's interesting the way that these characters are developing their own relationships and navigating their own life situations. But yeah, that was War and Peace for today, chapter 15. Next time we'll take a look at chapter 16. Thank you all, and I'll be right back.